Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Makakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, preaching this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered to the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. I say shalom to you Akim out there. And this is a sit-down lesson for In the News on November the 4th, 2022 at 12:10 a.m. on this Friday morning in the a.m. And this is a news article from the Jerusalem Post, and it was published by Jerusalem Post staff and published November the 4th, 2022, and last updated November the 4th, 2022 as well too. And the highlight of this news article, and it reads for In the News on November 4th, 2022. And it says the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, strikes Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip after rocket launches. And they said this is a graphic highlight of one of the Hamas targets struck by Israeli airstrikes on November the 3rd, 2022. And it says the IDF said that the strikes will lead to damage to the terrorist organization's attempts to strengthen and arm itself with rockets. The Israeli Defense Force launched airstrikes against Hamas underground rocket development and production complex targets in the Gaza Strip in response to an early rocket fire towards Israel. The Israeli Defense Force announced early on Friday morning. The IDF said that the strikes will lead to damage to the terrorist organization and attempts to strengthen and arm itself with rockets. Hamas bear responsibility for what is happening in the Gaza Strip, and it is Hamas that will pay the price for the security violation against the state of Israel. And it says Hamas bears responsibility for what is happening in the Gaza Strip, and it is Hamas that will pay the price for security violations against the state of Israel. The Israeli Defense Force added. The IAF scrambled jets before conducting airstrike on Hamas positions in the Gaza Strip.
How will you share your brilliance with the world? Keep forging your own path.
And it says multiple rockets fired towards Israel several hours prior to the retaliatory airstrikes. Palestine Islamic Jihadists launched 4 rockets towards Israeli territory in what they claimed was a response to the assassination of the commander of the I-Quad Brigades in Vienna. So I've seen that, showed that video already. And it says, and they said this is a developing story. So, and this is the graphic shows the damage of done to the Hamas infrastructure by the Israeli airstrikes on November the 3rd, and they doing a response of them of Hamas is firing airstrikes over there near the Israeli area. And this is Luke 21 and 9.
This couple was headed to the farmer's market when they got a chip. They drove to Safeway for a same-day repair, and with their insurance, it was no cost to them.
And it reads, "But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by." This is the book of Mark, chapter 13, verse 8. I'm going to drop at verse 7. Mark 13 and 7. And it reads, "But when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be not troubled, for such things must need be, but the end shall not be." To the next verse, Mark 13 and 8. And it says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and pestilence. And these are the beginning of sorrows." So yeah, these nations are increasing once again, like I mentioned before, in my previous videos of the nations rising up against one another, because Israel and Iran can't stand one another, and Hamas and Palestine cannot stand the Israelis. So that shows you signs of form of nations against nations and kingdom against kingdoms. Then you got the cross-border conflict between the Iranian-backed facilities in Syria against the IDF. The IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, use rocket strikes in that region in Syria. I believe the northern part of Syria, or the southern part of Syria, I believe. Now you got this latest story right here with the Israeli defense striking Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip, which has been, because the Gaza Strip is really messed up with the many years of wars and conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, for years and years and years. And it's still going on to this day, because even though you have Hamas really stationed in the Gaza Strip, in Lebanon as well too, over there in the Middle East. That's what most of their organization be stationed over there in Lebanon. But you're still gonna see the conflict between Israel versus Hamas, Palestine versus Israel. You're gonna see these tensions continuing, ongoing, endless proxy wars between the different nations and different kingdoms as well too. And that's what we're seeing, even though we're so used to custom of hearing and seeing wars in the Middle East, which is common. We're so used to hearing that, but we see an increase now, so more than ever, throughout the years. The proxy wars, endless wars between the two different nations been increasing, throughout the years, So expect to see it increase once again, even more, As I brought out this latest news story, I think they said this is a developing story, but I'll read it again. It says the Israel Defense Force strike Hamas targets in Gaza after a rocket launch. And I believe Hamas had was firing rockets towards Israel, because their main target is the military of Israel, which is the Israeli Defense Force. because they send rockets, strikes across the border of Syria, and recently now the Gaza Strip as well too. Because these two been having clashes back and forth throughout the years from uh, way back then. It been quite a while, especially from 2014 to the latest conflict, which is in last year, I believe. It lasted about a couple of days, and then it came to some type of ceasefire agreement. But even if they have like a ceasefire agreement on both sides, but it's still gonna have the the enmity between one another. Because Israel and Palestine, they can't stand one another, and Hamas and Israeli, they can't stand one another as well too. You know, so Israel, the Israelis, they got enemies. They got a lot of enemies, especially from the Arab, especially Arab, Arabic organizations of Hamas and Palestine. Because Palestine, they resist against the Israeli Defense Army and Hamas as well too. You know, so those tensions are still going to be there on both sides. Because like I mentioned before, the resistance of Palestine cannot stand the Israelis. Because you look at that in the West Bank, over there in Israel, over there in the West Bank, what is occupied by the Israelis, destroying homes, destroying families, destroying innocent people. And the Israelis look at the resistance of Palestine like they are the evil, like they are the terrorists and stuff like that. But those Israelis, they cause a lot of damage and harm to innocent civilians as well too. But they put all the blame on Hamas and the resistance of Palestine and all that. Israelis, they got a fault of what they do as well to those people over there in the Palestine territory. Trying to occupy, destroy their homes. So so these tensions on both sides is definitely going to increase against the Palestinians and Israelis and Hamas organizations, which is stationed in Lebanon and parts of the Gaza Strip over there in the Middle East as well too. So those tensions are definitely going to increase more and more and more. You know, even though, like I mentioned before, the continuing proxy wars, endless wars between the two different nations and different kingdoms as well too. That's why I brought up that Luke 21:9. The increase of commotions of wars, rumors of wars, proxy wars, clashes, border clashes between the nations. You know. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying for in the news that I just brought out. This news article was recently just happened over there in the Middle East, over there in the Gaza Strip, of the IDF striking targets of Hamas of Gaza in response to a rocket of Hamas did closer to the Israelis. So with that, I would like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Makakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, preaching this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled word, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And until next time, I will say shalom and a ball.